We will follow up on all that.
I've never
after
heard of it
Matt gets
first.
back and find out what it could possibly be.
No problem. Thank you for coming.
Okay,
Thank you.
thanks.
We are now live streaming. Everything you do and say will be recorded.
What's the spelling of Gene?
Jean, J-E-A.
Okay. Good evening, everybody. Tonight, our agenda, we actually have Charles Trotter here from our CPA firm. I think you're going to kind of speak to the board on our financials.
Good evening, everyone.
Mr. Gendel.
Sorry?
Is your number?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so this will serve as our exit or our financial presentation for the year ended December 31, 2021 for the town of Lancaster. We did just issue the financial statements June 29th as a debt issuer, which is the reason why you're required to have an audit every year. You're required to have some disclosure agreements performed by June 30th. So we met that deadline, which were just released. So these financial statements are available for circulation. We can print physical copies if you guys want them, but they have been issued. So my contact is at the back of this presentation, along with Luke Malecki, who's the partner on this engagement. Unfortunately, couldn't make it. He took his 4 kids on a road trip for 15 days to Yellowstone. So moving to the second slide, what you're getting from this audit this year and every year, you have basic financial statements. So that's that package that just released. It's about 69 pages. It's all, most of those 69 pages are the property of the town of Lancaster. Only 4 or 5 pages in there is our property on our letterhead that represents our opinion for the year. So one opinion's at the front. It's the opinion on the financial statement themselves that they're fairly stated. And we did present an unmodified opinion, which is the cleanest opinion that everyone strives for. And it says that these financial statements are free from material misstatement. They can be relied on. And like I said, as a debt issuer, you're required to have that opinion. And so we, as independent third party, basically give our stamp of approval and say, whether it's your residents, whether it's banks, whether it's credit agencies, whether it's you guys as the decision makers, that they can be relied on. And then the opinion that's on the back of the financial statements is more on the, it's called government auditing standards, and it says that we rely on your internal controls as they relate to the data that goes in the financial statements from the accounting software here. And if there were to be significant deficiencies or material weaknesses, we'd have to present it there. Over the last couple of years, we've included a material weakness on bank reconciliations and year-end processes and making sure the books are closed and presented to the auditors in a timely manner. That finding was repeated again this year. There were some improvements as far as journal entries. The procedures that was followed this year in journal entries, we basically pick 15, 20 journal entries. We make sure that they're properly performed, they're reviewed in a timely manner, and they're stamped, approved, and reviewed. That happened this year for all those 15, 20 that we tested, and obviously throughout the year, as we do all our tests, we have access to a ton of journal entries, and the procedure this year was performed. We do continue to recommend that formal policies be implemented so that those procedures are documented. The one new thing this year that we added to that comment is on the accounting software that's used at the town. Munis went live this year in September. There was a lot of training prior, there was a lot of training during, but we feel like there needs to be even more training so that it's fully grasped that moving forward, the year end is done in a more timely manner.
And that's all in your report?
That's all in the report. That'll be on the last page of our report actually has a follow-up on last year's, and the second to last page has the current year follow-up. The second bullet there is a management letter. It's something that we have issued in the past. It's not a requirement, but we like, as a firm that gets the opportunity to audit a lot of different municipalities across New York State, a lot of local towns in Erie County, we see a lot of new ideas that we can bring to the town of Lancaster, especially in years that are different with COVID relief. So we use that management letter as an opportunity to say what's new, what are other municipalities doing, but we also use that as other improvements that we see could be made based on the results of our audit. Those are not improvements that cause these financials to be to have what we call material weakness or significant deficiencies, but it's something that we see can be used as an improvement.
Charles, are you comparing us to other towns as well during this?
I mean, absolutely.
I know you do quite a few towns
Absolutely.
in Erie County.
Yeah, there's things that, for example, when I'm talking about this finding that we have in the back of the financial statements, we only talk about bank reconciliations and year-end procedures because when we go to similar sized towns, these are things that are best practice. So we wanted the town to use those, but then we use things that the town does and we shift it to other municipalities that don't have those resources. So the third bullet is the auditor's communication letter. That's a required, those are our required communications that I'm going to go through on the next slide. And then departmental report, as part of our audit, we also issue a report on the cash-based accounting, so money coming in, money going out, for the receiver of taxes, town clerk, town justices, and then separately we also do audits of the youth, rec, and senior center, which we just run a series of tests on the cash receipts and the cash disbursements. There was nothing significant to report on in those audits. So the required communications, I'll try to go through those pretty quickly. They're redone every year, but it's basically if there were to be anything significant in the audit that you guys would need to know as the board, this is where they'd come up. So what our responsibility is, like I said, as a debt issuer, you're required to have an audit. We're that third party. We come in and say, we're independent, they could be relied on, we do all our tests, and then they're free of material misstatements. So in doing so, we provide reasonable assurance, not absolute assurance. We cannot test every single transaction. We'd basically be hired by the town and stay here all year if we were to do that. So our reasonable assurance essentially says we run a series of tests looking at large dollar amounts, looking at risks and thresholds, and then we randomize the population for each cycle, and we get to a reasonable basis that we deem is appropriate. Significant accounting policies. There's nothing new this year. They're all in Note 1 to the financial statements when you guys have access to it. Significant accounting estimates. Every year it's the same. Estimates are hard to audit because they're more judgmental, and so a change in a % discount rate can alter liability by $20 million. I'm talking about these legacy costs, the net pension liability, and the other post-employment benefits liability. So in this case, we rely on actuaries and the assumptions that they use, the discount rate. We compare it to the market, we compare it to other actuaries, we compare it to municipalities, and they're all appropriate. Independence, we are independent in fact and in appearance. Myself, Luke, and all the engagement, or all the other staff members at the town. And then other matters would be if we didn't have full scope, if certain transactions were refused that we picked, we'd have to disclose it. Everything was an open book. So moving on to the financial side. Any questions before I go into the finances? The first slide here focuses on the town as a whole. It takes every single fund, not just general fund. It takes general, police, highway, outside village, fire, which are your major funds, but it also accounts for your non-major funds, the ones that are less significant in dollar amounts, where they're aggregated and presented further in the back of the financial statements. The part-town fund, the highway townwide, the refuse, lighting, water, and your miscellaneous special revenue funds. So that chart takes all those funds into account, and it shows a pretty ideal picture of where we as auditors want to see, but most importantly, where the OSC is going to come in and say, a lot of findings that the OSC has when they review financial aspects is, are you overtaxing, or vice versa? Are you accumulating too much fund balance or too little? Are you in fiscal stress? In this case, what they want to see is they want to see the revenues matching the expenditures or be close to it. And that's what you're seeing from 2017 to 2019 and 2020. And obviously you have these years that are outliers, and what you're seeing in 2020 and 2021, you'll see in the general fund on the next slide as well, but that's what every single municipality sees. That gap this year that was created because costs were still controlled, programs still didn't resume fully, and then the sales tax, which out of nowhere, just came to fruition. And so sales tax in itself went up 20% from 2020, 20% of $5 million to $1 million. So just in that, you see that gap as to why revenues went up. So fear set in 2020, and then that expenditure line, the red line, went down. So general fund went up $1.1 million, police went up $1 million, the highway outside village went up 170, and the fire went up 425, which is what we're going to go on the next slide. The major funds are going to be on the following slide. So we're going to start here with the general fund on the next slide. Once again, a pretty ideal picture. The blue line is right over the red line, and then what the OSC wants to see is they want to see every now and then that your expenditures are actually going to outpace your revenues, which is what happened in 2020. But that was a planned use. That year there was a planned use of $260,000, was exactly how the budget was set. 2020, once again, very close with the COVID year where your revenues and your expenditures at a time where costs were cut and freeze were put in a little bit. 2020 shows exactly revenues exceeding just a little bit your expenditures. And then in 2021, the gap between your revenues, blue line, and your expenditures, the red line, is $1.1 million. Well, like I said, general fund this year made $1.1 million. There's $3.5 million in what we consider as unassigned fund balance, which is available for use. That represents about 35% of the budget.
I think what mainly happened there is that the sales tax revenue that came in wasn't as bad as we thought it would be, yet we had to cut some of our programs, such as lifeguards, the pools and that, so we didn't spend as much as we normally did, yet we didn't take as much of the sales tax hit as we thought we were going to. So that may explain.
Yeah, so part of the reason for the biggest difference here is the expenditures, which went down pretty significantly, but of that, $480,000 is debt from the police building that was paid off last year. So that came off the books, so that's $480,000 that was no longer needed to be spent. And then also last year, that expenditure line, the red line, did decrease, but it decreased because of the freeze that happened. Because if you take off the freeze, there was also a buyout that happened last year that would have caused your expenditures to go up. So expenditures stayed pretty level last year. So those reasons explain why your expenditures went down $900,000. And as far as where that stands compared to the budget, revenues did see town of Lancaster and every single town in Erie County mortgage tax had an incredible year this year. So that was $730,000 better than budgeted. Police fund on the next slide. I mean, once again, I feel like the graph itself shows a good picture of what happened because of COVID. And it shows revenues and expenditures. If you were to remove the 2020 year where revenues went under expenditures, or if you were to remove 2017 and 2018 where revenues went above expenditures and you were to average those out, you'd be pretty right on top of one another as far as revenues and expenditures. So what happened in 2020 is the police took a little hit with that sales tax. That picked right back up this year, like I said. Revenues increased $1.7 million in the police fund. $1 million is sales tax. That's at 20%. And then expenditures, I mean, your red line, the expenditures, has been consistent ever since 2017 and probably even before. You see that just steady growth from 17 to 2021. So there's really not much to talk about with this police fund other than the gap created by the $1 million increase in sales tax. So it'll be critical to see where it stands at December 31, 2022 and where it sits now. On the next slide, the highway fund. That one is a little less predictable. A lot of those gaps went from one year to the other are related to equipment purchases when they come due. So it's harder to predict. But what happened this year is Highway Fund planned on using $225,000 in 2021. It ended up generating $170,000. So that gap of about $395,000 is mainly due to savings in transportation with some payroll and snowplow work. Expenditures still increased $119,000 from the prior year, and revenues went down slightly by $30,000. I think part of that also was interfund revenue, where typically the highway fund charges parks or other departments for the labor that they send out, and that charge was not made this year, so they took the expenditure on that end. And then just observation, like I said, I think there hasn't been anything new from the prior year. We improved journal entries, and then we offer that Munis training should be even bumped up a little bit more. And then just some smaller items. In a management letter, we're likely going to include a comment on the American Rescue Plan. You guys, in your financial statements, you have $1.4 million of ARPA funds that was received in 2021 that wasn't used. You'll be getting anytime now, about maybe next couple weeks or month, the second half of 1.4 if you haven't already. So that'll be $2.8 million of ARPA funds that the town will get to decide on what to spend on. We work with a lot of different municipalities as consultants as far as how to spend it, so we have that knowledge. But for our municipalities that we work with as far as audit, we can certainly help routinely just through a phone call without it charging anything more.
What can it be spent on?
So the final rule that was just most recently issued, allowed municipalities up to the $10 million. If you've heard about it, you can spend up to your full amount of 2.8. Well, they say spend, what they call revenue reduction. So it takes a look at it. It's a general term that they use to say the provision of government services. So basically, because you left the town open during COVID, those mandated salaries that had to be there, a lot of public safety, can get reimbursed. So you can have that money back, and then you get to reappoint it to future uses. What we've seen people do, counties that have a lot of ARPA funds that came in, is they use that revenue reduction. They said, for example, City of Buffalo was one of them. They said, we're going to use $40 million. And then we had public safety salaries throughout that time. So we're going to get that money back, and then they're able to use that money in the future for one-time costs. Not something that's going to be built in the budget and impact future years, whether it's paying off debt early or providing gas rebates. I've seen little things out there that one-time costs that aren't going to impact future budgets. That's the provision of government services that allows you more flexibility. But then the main things that they like to see in the final rule from the U.S. Treasury is capital projects, water, sewer infrastructure, broadband. But those are more difficult in that if you wait until you spend it, you might have to remit that money back if it's not fully committed yet. So you have up to 2024 to commit it, 2026 to spend it. And when you get involved with contracts, sometimes that gets delayed a little bit.
Thank you.
So that's it. Any questions? So, like I said, our information's on here. If you have any questions throughout, feel free to send an email. And we have the financial statements available to be printed if anyone wants a copy.
Yes, please.
Ron, Pam, you guys want me to just run 10 copies?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay. Well, thanks for your time, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you. I think, yeah. I just got some. Okay, our agenda tonight, we have 21 pre-filed resolutions.
Okay.
No suspended, one public hearing, which has to deal with the Angry Buffalo, no executive sessions. We'll now be closing in memory of 5 people.
Oh, could I add one?
Yeah, absolutely.
Can I email it? It's Kimberly Stribbing, 99 6th Avenue.
And do you have John Kegler on there?
I do.
Thank you.
Okay. So I guess we could run through the resolutions real quick.
99 6th
Okay, the first two are the standard, the minutes for the first one and the audit claims for the second. And Councilmember Mazer, you have 3 through 6.
Yes. Number 3 is the biweekly issuance of building permits. Number 4 is designate the town as lead agency for a seeker rezone or seeker review.
Number 4.
Sure.
Briefly, just so the whole board is aware, I've made Lisa known as well that this is a former client of mine. So anything that has to do with this particular rezone, any of it all, should go to Emily and Lisa and leave me out of it. Just so you're all aware. Thank you.
Number 5 is to adopt a negative declaration on our local law number 6, which we had a public hearing on recently. Number 6 is to adopt number 5 was to adopt a seeker declaration, negative declaration on the local law number 6. And number 6 is to actually adopt the local law on residential districts and schedule revisions.
Number 7 is Councilmember Dickman.
Number 7 is just a special use permit renewal for Greg's Tree Service.
Okay, number 8 would be mine. That's just to amend the start date of Craig Blanchard in our Assistant Code Enforcement Officer. And Councilmember Mazer, you have 9 through 12.
Yes, number 9 is to authorize special use permit for a telecommunications tower co-location for T-Mobile Northeast on Mohawk Place. Number 10 is to authorize a special use permit for Brazen Brewery on 5839 Genesee Street. Number 11 is to adopt a seeker negative declaration for the Cross Creek subdivision Phase 9. Number 12 is to propose the 6-lot single-family home development plot at Cross Creek.
And number 13 is to appoint youth bureau tutors. And then back to Councilmember Mazer for 14.
Number 14 is to grant a request by the Lancaster Depew Baseball League to use their indoor training facility parking lot for barbecue.
And Councilmember Burkhardt, you have 15 through 17.
All right, 15 is appoint Mark Crusoe, dog control officer, part-time. He's taking Kim's spot, which she went to dispatch. 16, authorize agreement, Molenberg Bats, Inc., HVAC preventative maintenance. 17, accept and authorize supervisor for replacement of compressor of the HVAC unit at the police department.
Councilmember Dickman, number 18.
Number 18 is to give the town attorney and code enforcement permission to take actions against the residents on Sterling, Hanover, and Carlisle who are not in compliance with stormwater management and property maintenance.
And we're going to finish things off, Councilmember Burkhardt, with 19 through 21.
All right, 19 is authorized memorandum of agreement, overtime pay for Amy Sharkey and Karen Pluick, Police Department. Number 20, award bid for remote control track mower Highway Department. That is for the cattails. And 21, authorized agreement, Erie County snow removal and ice control agreement, 2022 to 2025.
All right, thank you. All right, anybody, Ed, anything you'd like to report on?
Well, I mean, I'll give a report during the meeting, but I have one issue just over in the work session. Kelly Hartley from south part of town. I know she's talked to Dave.
Kelly Howard?
Yeah. She sent me an email on Friday and then left me a voicemail today. A slew of questions and, you know, about a park in the south part of town. And I guess my question to the board is I mean, I can investigate all this, but how far do you want me to go? looking at properties, and she has a whole bunch of questions, different parcels that she's found, and I'd have to start looking at the GIS map and figuring out what parcels the town owns to start with. There are some. And then absent that would be what parcels are open that you could approach an owner and say, hey, we're interested in talking about.
My feeling is the board doesn't have any intention to move forward. There's no sense in spending the money to investigate. And, you know,
Well, that's my question. I mean, I'm
Well,
happy to dive into it.
She met with me, she met with Michelle, me and Michelle, and we do have a lack of a park in the south part of town. I think it's at least worth have Ed investigate our parcels in the south part of town and see where we come up with any, you know.
Yeah, I mean, the town has small parcels, you could put in some pocket parks, a basketball court, you know, or one or two, or a tennis court or something. You're not gonna build a Westwood in the south part of town, obviously, without buying a piece of land somewhere, but, you know, could you use existing town parcels? Maybe. I mean, there's a piece at the end of Woodgate, Michael Anthony.
That we talked about, yeah.
Yeah, it's a fairly sizable pond. The problem, you know, there's a parcel. The problem is there's a pond on a part of it's wetland. But there's probably, what did I say, an acre?
Yeah,
acre
just
and a
under an
half of
acre.
usable land, you know, so you could get a couple of basketball courts in there probably with some parking. But then you'd have to have, it would be access either probably off of Woodgate. So, I mean.
If it's our property already, I'm all for it.
It is our, that piece.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's what I'm
pieces,
saying.
yeah.
So if you can put together a map that shows where we have parcels and get it to the board and,
Yep.
you know, as
Okay.
part of this, I
Fine.
think that'd be
And then,
Yeah,
the thing to do.
as long as we're all willing to move forward, I would not want to go through a study and then three of us say, we don't want to do this.
And then the other question is, I'm more than happy to communicate with Kelly if you want me to be that, because she gave me a list of questions she wants answers to, and I haven't answered them yet, because I didn't want to get into a dialogue, and all of a sudden, you know, it's a nonstop back and forth.
I think if we get the maps first,
Okay.
and we can see where we have property, why don't we do that first?
Okay.
And then we'll see what we want to do after that.
Yeah, she did ask about the parcel that was behind the fire hall. I know the town looked at that was just before I started, but I was aware there was a parcel behind Twin District. Problem with that is, there was a lot of wetland, it wasn't usable, just the way the land was laid out. So I can tell her that, if that, you know, that was one of her questions. And, all right, well, I'll respond to her and
Very good.
go from there.
Anything else?
I just want to say one thing. The Heritage Trail going in from Walter into that pond that everybody thought is a pond on the left, and it was never a pond. We have cleared the beavers and the debris that beavers have left, and how that they've been trapped. And highway also unplugged the pipe, which it is now back to where it was supposed to be, and it has never been a pond. Once the vegetation does grow in, you know, there is a little bit of order there right now from the pond emptying, the low spot emptying. And I just want y'all to be aware because questions have come up since we've done that.
Yeah, I was going to mention that because I'm getting questions. I actually
Well, we've
contacted
been
you
fielding
guys.
a lot of them too,
Yeah.
so
Okay, that was
just so everybody's updated on that.
pretty deep in there.
It had to be, what, 6, 8 feet, right? Right, yeah. Well,
And
yeah.
then the other quick thing I wanted to talk to, which I had talked to Tom about, is the playground. We put one in back at Twin District this year, but we are not receiving any kids. I did send the board a memo also, and Lynn Gruda from the Village Water Park has offered us to use sport facility for it. But right now, there's things that you take from there, update agreement or whatever.
Well, she wanted to move it to a place where there'd be more activity, where more kids would attend, and had discussions with village representatives. And we don't have a facilities sharing agreement with the village. We have a services sharing agreement, but there's no facilities sharing agreement. So I'm going to work with Art and put something together that authorizes, it sort of covers them if it's our program, covers us if it's their defect. And then I'll make it not necessarily facility specific, but that if the board allows them to use that facility or wants to engage in a different program at a different place, it'll cover it because we can refer back to the agreement. But I think it makes sense to just have something in place and then you guys can, individually make the decision if you want that program to go forward or in that location. Does that make sense?
I think we should also look into getting the school district, maybe working on one with the school district too, so, we do share, if, for example, in the south part of town, maybe one day we can get a group of kids at William Street. There's no playground there right now, but, if,
I did reach out to Cone Park too, just on,
Yeah.
but I haven't heard back.
Yeah,
They're not
but I
going to
think-
let us use our facilities, and there's no bathroom facility.
exactly.
Okay, we're going to move into our regular meeting now. It's 7:02. So I'm going to call the meeting to order. Diane, would you do the roll call, please?
Councilmember Burkhart?
Here.
Councilmember Dickman?
Here.
Councilmember Leary?
Here.
Councilmember Mazer?
Here.
Supervisor Rufino?
Here. Stand for the pledge. Invocation. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Please remain standing. It's too often that we're coming into these board meetings and there's always some type of tragedy that we're dealing with. If it wasn't TOPS not too long ago, now we had in a parade. It's just awful what we're living in. I have no words for it. But I did find this prayer, and it was kind of an Independence Day prayer that I'd like to read out. I think it's fitting for our time and what we're going through. Dear God in heaven, we humbly offer this prayer for peace and unity in the country. Today is a day we celebrate with pride and honor. However, we must not forget that it is also a day that is celebrated peacefully and harmoniously with others. We pray that our 4th of July celebrations remain peaceful and joyful. Engaging in conflict will only dishonor our ancestors and, more importantly, you. As our celebrations remain peaceful, we pray for other nations all over the world as well. May they, too, may find the peace that they so passionately fight for. We are all deserving of peace, so this prayer is lifted up to you as everything rests in your blessed hands. Amen. So tonight's meeting, we have 21 pre-filed resolutions, no suspended resolutions, 1 public hearing, no executive sessions. We'll be closing in memory of 6 people. Timothy D. Hines, Matthew Pluta, Gene Dennis, Henry Zelensky, John Kegler, and Kimberly Stribbing. So at this point in time, anybody out there would like to speak about any of the 21 pre-filed resolutions? Yes, sir? Just please come up here, state your name, and give your address.
David Kanaski, 104 Hanover Street. I'm in the Central Square Villas. I wanted to talk to you about the pond situation, which I guess Mr. Dickman has been working on. It's a difficult situation, but it's become a mess, and I've got some photos if you guys would
Is there a
mind
resolution on
passing
this?
them down.
Yes.
We've been talking, my wife's been calling Mr. Fascioni, for about 1.5 years about it, because I've only been married to her for 3 years, but she was an original owner, moved in 2013, and our condo faces, the back of it faces on the pond, and that's right in my backyard. So it wasn't overgrown like that when she moved in. It was, in fact, when I started hanging around 5 years ago, it was nice. It was, but it started to, nature takes its course, I guess. It started to grow. And a lot of reeds and stuff got in there. And you can see across from me how far the reeds got. Because our association, and I think there's an inaccuracy in the resolution that it says that our association, homeowners association, didn't do something about it. We spent $12,000 to have our side cleaned out, to have the reeds cleaned out, including about 6 or 8 feet out into the water. It's just a difficult situation because you've got all the private homes on the one side, you've got 2 associations on the other. Who's responsible for that? And then Mr. Fascioni keeps saying, well, it's a bad environmental problem because there's supposed to be fish in there, there's supposed to be wildlife in there, it's supposed to be sustainable, somebody has to monitor the pH. Well, who does that? because you've got a bunch of private homeowners. Now, some of them did actually clean up too, not a lot, but some of them did. Others have been dumping trash in there, lawn waste and stuff like that in the reeds. So it's not I'm not telling you I have a good solution, other than to say, I think the town needs to take that over or to annex it. It is essentially a stormwater retention pond. It's not just the people who live up against it whose water goes into that. The whole neighborhood, from both sides, the water flows into those ponds. So to say to those homeowners on the other side, well, you've got to pay to have this done, I don't think is fair, and I'm not one of them. Now, if my association has to pay something, there's 200 people who have to pay for it, 200 homes that have to pay for our little stretch. So it won't kill me in terms of financially. But some of the homeowners on the other side have, 3 homes have as much land area on that as we do. And what about in the water itself? I mean, you can say to me, I have to cut the grass right up to the water line, but the water line is moved. If you take a look at the pictures, that dirt area was underwater. Is underwater today because it's rained the last couple of days. It's underwater right now. That was dry because that was on the 23rd of June. So who's responsible for what goes on outside the water line? I mean, I can weed whack right up to the water line. That's not a big deal. But those reeds are 6-8 feet out on the other side in the water. And I don't think that's, something a homeowner normally would do is get on a pair of hip waders and go out there and pull out reeds, although I have done it. But I'm a little weird. So I also own a pair of hip waders, which a lot of people probably don't. So I guess I'm just saying to you, I don't know what the resolution is. It seemed from the conversation with the building department that my wife was having that the resolution was something different than what I thought it was. I had emailed, did anybody receive my email?
I did.
You did? I had emailed in support of it because he said, what he said to us was that the town was going to take it over. And I apologize to Mr. Burkhardt. I apologize. I couldn't find how to email you on the system. And it took some digging to find the rest of you, but I couldn't figure it out. So I apologize. I did not send you an email. I have a copy for you, if you mind.
Thank you.
So it just kind of highlights the problem. I'm fearful with what the resolution says right now, is that, okay, the town's going to fix it and then send us the bill. Okay, well, is everybody going to get an equal bill, including the association that already spent $12,000? And what is that remediation going to be, and what's going to make it permanent? Because that pond is too shallow now. It's filled in with silt, so it's going to need to be dredged out. You're going to need to put fish back in it. You're going to need to put, I don't know, whatever they put in it, crayfish or whatever. Somebody's going to have to monitor the pH and the other chemical balance in the water. Well, who's responsible for that? Because it's just going to grow back, and like I said, I don't think it's reasonable to expect a bunch of homeowners to be out there pulling out reeds 6-8 feet out in the pond. It's pretty muddy. It's difficult to walk in. So I don't have a solution for you. I'm sorry. I don't have a recommendation. I'm just kind of saying it's an odd problem, and I think it goes back to when that neighborhood was put together, the fact that that was put on the borderline between private properties and associations rather than
Some of those.
on an association
Some of
property.
those, I don't know about Hanover in the situation there, but some of those lot lines may go into the middle of the pond.
Yeah.
So that,
They all do.
the person that, across from you in those private homes, they may actually own part of that pond on their deed, believe it or not. It
Yeah, they
doesn't-
would have
it
actually
doesn't-
agreements to go around the pond. There were agreements like they could use each other's
Yeah,
land,
well-
or some people could use the whole pond.
Well, but like you say, when you look at the plot of that land in the building department, and I don't know what subdivisions that you're talking about is behind there, but that, some property owner may end up having, 10 feet of water on their,
Well, I think that's probably the case, because everything there was built by the same developer,
Yeah.
Murano. And they kind of plopped the ponds in between.
developments.
Right, but it is a stormwater retention pond. It's not really, a decorative pond or something
So the
that...
case goes, who's responsible for?
Well, and if you decide it's the homeowner's, great, but still, how are they going to go about doing that? And who's going to manage the wildlife if you want to, really make it a friendly ecosystem? Who's going to make sure there's fish in it? Who's going to make sure the pH is adjusted and those things? Because there's got to be at least, just on our one little pond there's got to be at least 7 or 8 private homes and 2 associations.
We got to move on to a public hearing, which was, it's past our time.
Okay, I just wanted to bring it to your attention. I don't, like I said, I don't know what the solution is, but I don't think it lends itself to a real simple solution at this moment.
It doesn't. Do you want
Thanks.
these photos back?
No, you can keep them, thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Can I have a motion to open the public hearing, which is for the Angry Buffalo?
Motion to open the
May I have a second?
hearing?
Second.
I'll read the legal notice. It's hereby given the pursuant to the authority set forth in Chapter 400 zoning, Section 78, special use permits of the Code of the Town of Lancaster and the Town Law of the State of New York, and pursuant to a resolution of the Town Board of the Town of Lancaster adopted on the 20th day of June, 2022. The said Town Board will hold a public hearing on the 5th day of July, 2022, at 7:05 p.m. local time at Town Hall, to hear all interested persons upon the application of Joseph David of Thorny Events LLC for special use permit to allow the Angry Buffalo to operate a restaurant with outdoor patio seating on premises located at 2753 Worley Drive in the town of Lancaster, County of Erie, State of New York. Anybody like to speak on? I think we have the representatives right here. Please state your name, address.
Hi, Joseph David, 6291 Sunflower Court, East Amherst, New York.
Hi, Jacob Metzger with Metzger Civil Engineering at 8245 Sheridan Drive in Williamsville. Also with us this evening is Mr. Kevin Curry. He's part of the development team. I'll maybe speak a little bit. I won't waste too much time, and Joe can add anything that he wants. As you laid it out, it's 2753 Worley Drive, which is the Angry Buffalo Bar and Tavern. Give you an idea of the neighborhood, there's residential properties to the north, which is the town of Clarence, and a few commercial businesses. Further to the south is mostly vacant land with a few single-family homes. And along Worley Drive is mostly commercial developments and vacant properties. The property itself that the Angry Buffalo's on is about 8.5 acres. It's currently zoned LC, which is light commercial. Basically, why we're here is we're trying to clean up the site, so to speak, trying to clean up the town files. As you guys are aware, the town went through a comprehensive, rezoning of a substantial number of properties recently. This has been owned and operated by Mr. David for the better part of a decade, and actually over a decade. And as part of that being a bar and restaurant in an LC zone, it requires a special use permit. And one was never applied to it because it was grandfathered in. And now, again, we're trying to close the loop, so to speak, and then have a special use permit, excuse me, issued for this bar and restaurant in the LC zoning district. I just want to say, we did, as a development team, look at the criteria that's involved for issuing a special use permit. You guys have to do your due diligence. We do comply with all the criteria that's needed for an applicant to secure a special use permit. So, we feel at this time, we're here for a discussion, obviously, for the public hearing and to answer any questions. I can ask Joe if he wants to say any words or not.
No, I think you covered it pretty well.
Okay.
Are there any questions for us at all?
No.
Okay. All right.
Pretty easy.
Does anybody else like to speak on this public hearing? I'll ask for a second time and a third time. Have a motion to close?
Motion to close?
May I have a second?
Second.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, we're going to move on to official reports. Did you want to make any statements?
Yeah, just a bunch of different projects. The library rehab, the bids are due on that Thursday morning, so we should be able to review those, prior to the next meeting, hopefully have a recommendation for award for the renovation work. Simi Road culvert, design is ongoing. Hopefully have the design wrapped up and get it out to bid August. The 3 culvert rehab project down in Enchanted Forest is, construction's ongoing. So far, so good. Erie Street water line project is nearing getting ready to go to bid. We're just waiting for Department of Health sign off. With that, Erie Street will be rebuilt from, or milled and repaved from cemetery to pavement as part of the water line project. Just because the water line's going down the eastbound lane in such a narrow road, it was just easier to get all said and done, just mill and top the whole thing. And then dog facility, I don't know what you've got to say, but
I'll add to it.
yeah, basically the work has pretty much been wrapped up. The outside work is done except for the fence.
Correct.
But the millings are in, paving, asphalt millings are down and rolled, ready to go. We're just waiting to wrap up the contract, paperwork, and then everything can be submitted to the state for final sign-off.
So, next town meeting, we'll have the resolutions for the building wrap-up and for the fencing itself. I do want to, Gene just had mentioned that John Snyder, who works for the Highway Department, tremendous, his expertise and just working with him, with the millings and with different grading, thank you, around the building. She said it's been nothing but a pleasure working with him, so I just wanted to mention it. Thank you. And then here's...
That's the final outside.
All set?
That was it, yes.
Okay. Any town board committee reports?
Yeah, for the planning committee, there's the planning board meeting tomorrow, Wednesday, July 6th. There's a couple things on it. They're going to have, planning board will be discussing 2 different rezones on Broadway. And they will also have a public hearing on the Field Stream subdivision on William Street. And through the rec committee, if the resolution passes today, the baseball league is having that chicken barbecue fundraiser, I guess, Sunday, 11 to 3.
The library is having their second chicken barbecue of the year on July 17th at noon. First one was a quick sellout, so if anybody's listening out there and want to come to the chicken barbecue, come early. Thanks.
It's mentioned in our work session, we've been getting calls on the Heritage Trail, and I actually went out to visit it and seen it myself, and I always wondered too, but as you enter Walter Winter, about a mile up the trail on the left-hand side, everybody thought it was supposed to be a pond, but after they did the beaver trapping and the pond was cleared out as far as the drainage, it's now back to its natural state, but it's going to have to go through some growing pains, if you will. There's quite a stench coming from there, and it's going to take some time. But it was never intended to be a pond. I myself didn't know that, as I always walked my dog down there and seen the pond, and then recently went with my new dog and knows it all dried up and that. And then the calls started coming. I know Michelle said you're getting a lot of calls over there as well. So anybody out there listening, that was never intended to be a pond, it is going back to its natural state. We just have to give it some time to cure properly. Okay, with that, we're going to move on to our resolutions. I'll start with the first one. I'd like to move resolution number 1. This is all the minutes of the regular meeting of the town board held on June 20th, 2022, being hereby approved. May I have a second?
Second.
May I have, or on the roll, on the question? On the roll.
Councilmember Burkhart?
Yes.
Councilmember Dickman?
Yes.
Councilmember Leary?
Yes.
Councilmember Mazer?
Yes.
Supervisor Rufino?
Yes, I'd like to move resolution number 2, and this is out the following order of claims, being hereby ordered paid from the respective accounts as per abstract to be filed in the office of the town clerk by the assistant to the supervisor. It's check run number 07052022 The amount hereby authorized to be paid is $503,591.33. May I have a second?
Second.
On the question, on the roll.
Councilmember Burkhart?
Yes.
Councilmember Dickman?
Yes.
Councilmember Leary?
Yes.
Councilmember Mazur?
Yes.
Supervisor Rufino?
Yes, Councilmember Mazur, you have numbers 3 through 6, please.
Yes, Mr. Supervisor and Honorable Town Board, after the following resolution, move for its adoption. Be it resolved that the following building permit applications being hereby reaffirmed. There's quite a few of them. I did not get the breakdown from the building department, I believe because some vacations there, but be it resolved that the building permit applications here encoded CSW for conditional sidewalk waiver being hereby reaffirmed with the waiver of the town ordinance required for sidewalks. However, the waiver is granted upon the express condition that the town of Lancaster at any future date reserves the right to order sidewalk installation at the expense of the property owner.
May I have a second?
Second.
On the question, on the roll.
Councilmember Burkhart?
Yes.
Councilmember Dickman?
Yes.
Councilmember Leary?
Yes.
Councilmember Mazur?
Yes.
Supervisor Rufino?
Yes.
Resolution number 4, Mr. Supervisor and Honorable Town Board, I offer the following resolution and move for its adoption. Whereas the Town Board of the Town of Lancaster has received a rezoning concept site plan application from Kyle Banisick on behalf of S&G Properties LLC, proposing to rezone 6218 Broadway Street, SBL number 117.00-1-1, a 1-acre parcel from agricultural residential to light commercial, construct a private office and attached classics automobile storage and showroom. And whereas the Town Board of the Town of Lancaster must comply with seeker and its implementing regulations at 6 New York CRR Part 617 in the review of the action, and whereas the Town Board is involved agency pursuant to seeker, and whereas the Town Board has determined that the action is a Type 1 action under seeker, requiring a coordinated review, and whereas the Town Board intends to serve as lead agency for the coordinated seeker review of the action, and now therefore be it resolved by the Town Board of the Town of Lancaster that number 1, the action is hereby determined to be a Type 1 action under seeker. 2, the Town Board hereby declares its intent to act as lead agency pursuant to seeker for the purpose of conducting an environmental review of the action. 3, the Town Board hereby directs the Town Attorney to send the notice of intent to act as lead agency to the other involved interested agency pursuant to seeker. And number 4, this resolution shall be effective immediately.
May I have a second?
Second.
On the question, on the roll.
Councilmember Burkhart?
Yes.
Councilmember Dickman?
Yes.
Councilmember Leary?
Yes.
Councilmember Mazur?
Yes.
Supervisor Rufino?
Yes.
Resolution number 5, Mr. Supervisor and Honorable Town Board, I offer the following resolution, move for its adoption. Whereas the Town of Lancaster, the Town Board of Town of Lancaster is proposing a local law updating and correcting requirements for home occupations within the agricultural residential, single-family residential, multifamily residential mixed-use districts and zoning 400 attachment 1, Schedule A of the Code of Town of Lancaster. And whereas the Town of Lancaster Planning Board has reviewed the environmental impact of this action pursuant to seeker regulations at their meeting on June 15, 2022, and recommended the negative declaration be issued. And whereas the board has duly considered the action, the environmental assessment form, the criteria for determining significance set forth in seeker, and such other information deemed appropriate, and whereas the board has identified the relevant issues of environmental concern, has taken a hard look at these areas, has made a reasoned elaboration for the basis for its determination. Now therefore it be it resolved as follows. Number 1, based upon the thorough review and examination of the known facts relating to the action and its careful review of all potentially adverse environmental impacts and the entire record and proceedings relating to the action, the board finds that the action will not have a significant adverse impact on the environment, and that the draft environmental impact statement will not be prepared. 2, the attached negative declaration incorporated herein by reference is issued and adopted by the reasons stated in the attached negative declaration. 3, the town clerk is hereby authorized and directed to distribute copies of the resolution as necessary. Number 4, this resolution is effective immediately.
May I have a second?
Second.
On the question, on the roll.
Councilmember Burkhart?
Yes.
Councilmember Dickman?
Yes.
Councilmember Leary?
Yes.
Councilmember Mazur?
Yes.
Supervisor Rufino?
Yes.
Resolution number 6, Mr. Supervisor and Honorable Town Board, I offer the following resolution and move for its adoption. Whereas the Municipal Home Rule Law of the State of New York, Chapter 26 of the Town of Lancaster Town Code provide for the adoption and enactment of local laws, and whereas a proposed local law of the year 2022 entitled Residential Districts in Schedule A Revision, which will amend the code of the town of Lancaster by updating and correcting requirements for home occupations within the agricultural residential, single-family residential, multifamily residential mixed-use districts, and zoning 400 Attachment 1, Schedule A, was introduced to the town board of the town of Lancaster by Councilman Member Mazer on the 6th day of June 2022, and whereas the town board, acting as lead agency under the State Environmental Quality Review Act, has determined that the action is a type 1 action and has issued a negative declaration, and whereas the town board called for, noticed, and held a public hearing on the proposed local law on June 20th, 2022, where all interested parties were allowed to address the proposed local law. Now therefore it be it resolved by the town board of the town of Lancaster that number 1, the attached local law number 6 of the 2022 is hereby adopted. Number 2, the local law shall be effected upon its filing with the Secretary of State pursuant to municipal home rule law.
May I have a second?
Second.
On the question? On the roll.
Councilmember Burkhart?
Yes.
Councilmember Dickman?
Yes.
Councilmember Leary?
Yes.
Councilmember Mazer?
Yes.
Supervisor Rufino?
Yes. Councilmember Dickman, number 7, please.
Thank you, Mr. Supervisor and Honorable Town Board. I offer resolution number 7 for its adoption. Now therefore be it resolved that the Town Board of the Town of Lancaster does hereby grant a renewal of the special use permit to Gregory A. Soika, owner of Greg's Tree Service, Lancaster, New York, upon the terms and conditions set forth in the zoning ordinance for the period beginning January 1st, 2022 and ending June 30th, 2022, and that the applicant will continue in compliance with conditions as set forth in Section 400-21 Industrial Districts and 400-78 Special Use Permits of the Code of the Town of Lancaster with the following conditions: no more than 200 cubic yards of tree grind and firewood are to be stored on the site. The permit will expire December 31st, 2022. Renewal is considered upon the applicant submitting a request in writing to the town clerk on or before December 31st, 2022, and that the applicant will authorize representatives from the building inspector's office to enter the premise upon reasonable notice to inspect the premise to verify compliance with the permit.
May I have a second?
Second.
On the question? On the roll.
Councilmember Burkhart?
Yes.
Councilmember Dickman?
Yes.
Councilmember Leary?
Yes.
Councilmember Mazer?
Yes.
Supervisor Rufino?
Yes. I'd like to move resolution number 8. This resolve the effective date of the appointment of Craig Blanchard to the position of Assistant Code Enforcement Officer, full-time in the Building Department, being hereby corrected from June 20th, 2022 to July 5th, 2022. May I have a second?
Second.
On the question? On the roll.
Councilmember Burkhart?
Yes.
Councilmember Dickman?
Yes.
Councilmember Leary?
Yes.
Councilmember Mazer?
Yes.
Supervisor Rufino?
Yes. Councilmember Mazer, you have number 9 through 12.
Yes, Mr. Supervisor and Honorable Town Board, I offer the following resolution and move for its adoption. Whereas on June 20th, 2022, the Town Board of the Town of Lancaster has herefore held a public hearing pursuant to Chapter 400 zoning, Article 9, Communication Towers, Section 400-48 Procedure, the Code of the Town of Lancaster upon application of Cassandra Darmody, agent for T-Mobile Northeast LLC, for a special use permit for telecommunications tower co-location of antennas and ancillary telecommunications equipment for a new carrier to be placed on the current tower located at Mohawk Place, which will be identified as T-Mobile Northeast LLC, site UP 10425A, site name Walden Avenue in the town of Lancaster, New York. And whereas persons for and against such special use permit have an opportunity to be heard, and whereas the town, acting as lead agency under the seeker law, has identified the relevant areas of environmental concern and determined action to be a type 2 action under seeker. Now therefore it be it resolved that pursuant to Chapter 400 zoning, Article 9, Communication Towers for Section 400-43, co-locating antennas of the Town Code of the Town of Lancaster, the Lancaster Town Board does hereby approve a special use permit for Cassandra Darmody, agent for T-Mobile Northeast, for telecommunications tower co-location of antennas and ancillary telecommunications equipment for a new carrier to be placed on the current tower located at Mohawk Place, which will be identified as T-Mobile Northeast LLC, site UP 10425A, site name Walden Avenue in the town of Lancaster, subject to the applicable terms and conditions set forth in Article 9 Communications Towers, Section 400-78 Special Use Permits with the following condition. A copy of the FCC license must be on file with the town clerk pursuant to Section 400-46A9.
May I have a second?
Second.
On the question?
This is 5G going up there with this?
I can't remember.
All right, I'm assuming,
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear you, Ed.
I'm assuming so, I mean, everything today's pretty much been 5G.
Isn't this the same place we asked for some kind of studies, health studies to be turned into the board?
That was a.
Was that a
different-
separate one?
Different, yeah, well, it was a different person.
Same place, same company though, right?
I don't know, I can't remember.
I'm not, I think we should pull it at this point until we get the health study.
And I mean,
Nobody ever
is it,
responded.
if it's not 5G going up there, if it's something different, but who's the, I mean, the carrier's T-Mobile, but is it a 5G?
I don't have the information with me, so.
Can we pull it at this point and do it the
You want
next
to pull?
town board meeting? Or?
We can
Yeah,
pull
I'll
it.
send my second.
He wants to rescind his second?
Okay.
I mean,
Right. And we answered all his questions. Okay, no. So we did have the public hearing, the person spoke. I mean,
no,
Yeah. I mean, they were supposed to get back to us with the health studies.
the gentleman was here. Was that for a different company? Because we had asked.
That gentleman was here a couple months ago. Yeah, there was a lady that was here, I think, the second time.
I think, didn't we ask the same stuff? I mean, again, we wanted if it's 5G or 4G,
Well, we
I
can,
think we need to know that.
okay,
Yeah,
we can pull it then now.
because I don't, yeah, sorry, I don't recall.
So do we need a motion to table then at this point?
well, you're going to rescind your second, you said?
Yeah.
Okay, you're going to motion the table?
Motion to table, I guess. Board feels like that?
Again, I wish a phone call or something, then we could do this beforehand. And it's, I mean, it's fine that we're doing the investigation, but maybe a phone call to Councilmember Mesa with his resolution instead of having him go through it all. But, okay, we're just going to table
A
that.
second.
Oh, I mean,
I'll second his motion to table.
okay. Roll, on the roll?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, resolution number 10. Mr. Supervisor, Honorable Town Board, I offer the following resolution and move for its adoption. Whereas the Town Board of the Town of Lancaster held a public hearing on June 20th, 2022 pursuant to Chapter 400 zoning, Section 78, entitled Special Use Permits of the Code, Town of Lancaster, upon the application of Herb and Andrew Schaub on behalf of Brew Fun Enterprises, LLC, Brazen Brewing, for a special use permit to operate a microbrewery tap room, which includes retail sales, restaurant, and outdoor seating on the premises located at 5839 Genesee Street in the Town of Lancaster. Whereas persons for and against such use special use have an opportunity to be heard, and whereas Code Enforcement Officer Matt Fashone has reviewed the use and found it compliant to the zoning district of the special use permit request per his letter dated 27th January 2021. Now therefore be it resolved that pursuant to Chapter 400 zoning, Article 6, Industrial Districts, Section 400-20 Light Industrial District of the Code of the Town of Lancaster, the Town Board of the Town of Lancaster does hereby grant a special use permit to Herb and Andrew Schaub on behalf of Brew Fun Enterprises, LLC, Brazen Brewing, for a special use permit to operate a microbrewery tap room, which includes retail sales, restaurant, and outdoor seating on the premises located at 5839 Genesee Street in the Town of Lancaster, upon the conditions set forth in the zoning ordinance and set forth in the zoning ordinance for the period beginning July 5th, 2022 through July 4th, 2024. And that two, the applicant will continue continue in compliance with conditions as set forth in Section 400-20 Light Industrial District, 400-22 Supplementary Regulations for L1 District, and 400-78 Special Use Permits of the Code of the Town of Lancaster, and that any additional conditions listed here, and as long as the applicant continues to engage in the occupation listed above on the premises, namely letter A, permit must be renewed every 2 years at no additional cost to the applicant. Renewal is considered upon property owner submitting a request in writing to the town clerk on or before July 4th, 2024. B, hours of operation for outdoor seating be limited to no later than 10 o'clock post meridian. C, there shall be no amplified sound transmitted to the outside seating area. And D, applicant will provide a copy of the business New York State Federal Tax Employer ID number, and when applicable, a license from the appropriate regulatory agency for the service being provided.
May I have a second?
Second.
On the question? On the roll?
Councilmember Burkhart?
Yes.
Councilmember Dickman?
Yes.
Councilmember Leary?
Yes.
Councilmember Mazer?
Yes.
Supervisor Rafino?
Yes.
Number 11, Honorable Town Board and Mr. Supervisor offer the following resolution and move for its adoption. Whereas the Town Board is considering the proposed subdivision development submitted by Elliott Lasky of Pleasant View Gardens LLC, consisting of 6 single-family home lots on 2.2-acre parcel at 538 Pavement Road in the town of Lancaster, and whereas the Town of Lancaster Planning Board has reviewed the environmental impact of this subdivision project pursuant to seeker at their meeting on June 15, 2022, and recommended a negative declaration be issued. And whereas the town board has duly considered the plans for the subdivision using the short environmental assessment form of the Seeker Review Act, regulations, and such other information deemed appropriate, including the recommendation of the Lancaster Planning Board. And whereas the town board has identified the relevant issues and areas of environmental concern, has taken a hard look at these areas, has made a reasonable elaboration of the basis for its determination, and whereas the proposed action has been labeled unlisted under seeker, now therefore be it resolved by the town board of the town of Lancaster that 1, the project is described as a proposed 6-lot single-family home subdivision submitted by Elliott Lasky of Pleasant View Gardens LLC, located at 538 Pavement Road, will not result in any large and important impacts, and therefore it is an action which will not have significant adverse impact on the environment. For this reason, the town board issues the attached negative declaration of the environmental significance for the reasons stated therein. 2, the town clerk shall file a copy of the negative declaration in the file for the project. 3, the town attorney's office shall prepare and file a notice of determination of non-significance with the petitioner and with all required New York State and Erie County agencies, filing a copy of the letter of transmittal. 4, this resolution is effective immediately.
May I have a second?
Second.
On the question? On the roll?
Councilmember Burkhart?
Yes.
Councilmember Dickman?
Yes.
Councilmember Leary?
Yes.
Councilmember Mazer?
Yes.
Supervisor Rafino?
Yes, I'd just like to point out that this was the area where they were going to put multi-use, they were going to put some businesses and apartments above. They had every right to do that. We could not stop them. I had a few meetings with Mr. Lasky. I can't express how much of a professional he was during this time, and he did listen to the residents, and he pulled all his plans for their multi-use, and they went with 6. He convinced his partners that this was the right thing to do, and they went with the 6 homes. Of course, they're not going to make as much money with this, but again, sometimes it's not all about the money. You know, they built all those homes in that area, and my plea to him was that, look, if you put this up first and then put the homes up, that's a different story, but you put all the homes up, and now you want to put something different than what the plan stated first. And I think that resonated with him, and again, I can't thank him enough for being so professional and listening to the residents, listening to the, you know, some of the comments that I brought forth for the residents as well, and you know, making this change. I think everybody at the end wins with this.
I would second that. We appreciate what he did there. There was a lot of resident involvement in that, and it worked out for the best.
Okay, so, I'm sorry, Dan, I didn't
No,
mean
it's
to
no problem.
interrupt your...
No problem. Number 12, resolution number 12, Mr. Supervisor and Honorable Town Board, offer the following resolution and move for its adoption. Whereas Elliott Lasky of Pleasant View Gardens LLC, 4430 Walden Avenue, Lancaster, New York, has therefore to apply for an approval of a 6-lot single-family home development to be known as Cross Creek Phase 9, located at 538 Pleasant View Road in the town of Lancaster, whereas a preliminary plot was submitted to the planning board and was approved on their June 15, 2022 meeting, and whereas the planning board has completed an environmental review on June 15, 2022 in conformance with seeker regulations, and the town board acting as lead agency issued a negative declaration on July 5, 2022, and whereas the town board of the town of Lancaster has duly reviewed and considered the proposed subdivision, now therefore be it resolved as follows: the town board of the town of Lancaster hereby approves the proposed 6-lot single-family home development preliminary plot as prepared by GPI Engineering dated December 16, 2021, and filed with the town clerk on January 7, 2022, for the said development to be known as Cross Creek Phase 9, with the following conditions. Number one, required topsoil volume computation shall be provided per the town's adopted subdivision regulations. Two, all easements to be shown on individual lot surveys when lots are sold. Three, prior to acceptance of any public improvement permits, the contractor shall provide a 2-year maintenance guarantee as required per town code. 4, prior to construction, the contractor is to provide a performance guarantee when PIP applications are submitted with an amount equal to the construction cost. 5, contractor to provide an as-built survey to the building department prior to any certificate of occupancy being issued. As-built survey will identify stormwater system and shall be provided to the town prior to the town's acceptance of the system. 6, 7 copies of the filed map cover with proof of filing delivered to the town clerk's office. Number 7, proof of Erie County Water Authority, Erie County Department of Environment and Planning, Division of Sewers Management, and the Erie County Department of Public Works approvals be provided to the town.
May I have a second?
Second.
On the question? On the roll.
Councilmember Burkhart?
Yes.
Councilmember Dickman?
Yes.
Councilmember Leary?
Yes.
Councilmember Mazur?
Yes.
Supervisor Rufino?
Yes. I'd like to move resolution number 13. This resolved, the following individuals are hereby appointed to the following part-time, temporary, seasonal positions in the Youth Bureau for a period not to exceed 5 months. That these being part-time positions provide no health insurance, sick days, vacations, or other fringe benefits not specifically mandated for part-time, temporary employees. They are Katie Lutz, Kevin Kopersky, and Linda Conroy, all tutors. Be it further resolved that the supervisor of the town of Lancaster shall be authorized to take all necessary action to implement the foregoing. May I have a second?
Second.
On the question, on the roll.
Councilmember Burkhart?
Yes.
Councilmember Dickman?
Yes.
Councilmember Leary?
Yes.
Councilmember Mazur?
Yes.
Supervisor Rufino?
Yes. Councilmember Mazur, number 14, please.
Yes, Mr. Supervisor, Honorable Town Board, I offer the following resolution and move for its adoption. Whereas the Lancaster Depew Baseball League has requested the use of the Town of Lancaster LBD Indoor Training Facility parking lot located within Westwood Park for a chicken barbecue presented by Carubas Chicken Pit. Fundraiser will be held on Sunday, July 10th, 2022, from 11 a.m. to 3 p.m. And whereas the Town Attorney's Office has prepared a release of liability and assumption of risk, which provides the terms and conditions for the use of the LBD Indoor Training Facility parking lot located within Westwood Park, which the league has executed and submitted the required proof of liability insurances in advance of the event taking place, which have also been approved by the Town Attorney's Office. Now therefore be it resolved that the Town Board of the Town of Lancaster hereby grants Lancaster Depew Baseball League's request to use the Town of Lancaster Indoor Training Facility parking lot located within Westwood Park for a chicken barbecue presented the Carubas Chicken Pit fundraiser, which will be held Sunday, July 10th, 2022, from 11 to 3 p.m.
May I have a second?
Second.
On the question, on the roll.
Councilmember Burkhart?
Yes.
Councilmember Dickman?
Yes.
Councilmember Leary?
Yes.
Councilmember Mazur?
Yes.
Supervisor Rufino?
Yes. Councilmember Burke, number 15 through 17, please.
Thank you, Mr. Supervisor and Honorable Town Board. I'm offering resolutions 15, 16, and 17 for adoption. Whereas Gene Carn, Dog Control Officer for the Town of Lancaster Dog Control Department, by letter dated June 29, 2022, has recommended the appointment of the following individual to the following part-time permanent position. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the following individual are hereby appointed to the following part-time permanent position in the Town of Lancaster Dog Control Department, working not more than 19 3/4 hours per week, and that these being part-time positions provide no health care insurance, sick days, vacations, or other fringe benefits not specifically mandated for part-time permanent employees. The new employee, Mark Acruso, Dog Control Officer, be it further resolved that this individual shall be compensated for any scheduled work shift for the actual number of hours worked, but shall be compensated for any unscheduled call-ins for a minimum of 4 hours. Be it further resolved that the supervisor of the Town of Lancaster shall be authorized to take any necessary action to implement the foregoing.
May I have a second?
Second.
On the question, on the roll.
Councilmember Burkhart?
Yes.
Councilmember Dickman?
Yes.
Councilmember Leary?
Yes.
Councilmember Mazur?
Yes.
Supervisor Rufino?
Yes.
Resolution 16. Whereas by resolution adopted June 1st, 2020, the town of Lancaster entered into 2 maintenance agreements with Molenberg Betts, Inc. to provide semi-annual maintenance services on the HVAC systems within the town's highway office building, mental health center, recreation department, senior center, town hall, youth bureau, and OEM. And whereas the agreements expired according to their terms on May 31st, 2022, and whereas the town's Building and Grounds Department requested that the town's consulting engineer, Ed Schiller, solicit RFPs for semi-annual maintenance services for the various HVAC, heating, cooling, and hot water systems located within all of the town-owned facilities, and whereas Ed Schiller received 2 RFPs responses, and by letter dated June 13th, 2022, has recommended that the town enter into a new agreement with Molenberg Betts, Inc. to provide semi-annual HVAC inspections and preventative maintenance services on the heating, cooling, and hot water systems within all of the town facilities for an annual cost of $12,280 per their quote dated May 16th, 2022. Now therefore be it resolved that the town board of the town of Lancaster accepts the agreement from Molenberg Betts, Inc., 300 Scott Street, Buffalo, New York, to provide semi-annual HVAC inspections and necessary preventative maintenance on the heating, cooling, and hot water systems located within the dog control facility, highway department, garage, highway office building, mental health, outpatient center, OEM, recreation department building, senior center, town hall, and youth bureau to commence June 1st, 2022, and terminate on May 31st, 2023, for a cost not to exceed $12,280 per their quote dated May 16th, 2022, which will be paid for with funds available from the town's 2022 buildings, other capital outlay budget. Be it further resolved that the town board of the town of Lancaster hereby authorizes the town supervisor to execute said agreement pending receipt and approval of the required insurance documents by the town's attorney's office.
May I have a second?
Second.
On the question? On the roll?
Councilmember Burkhart?
Yes.
Councilmember Dickman?
Yes.
Councilmember Leary?
Yes.
Councilmember Mazur?
Yes.
Supervisor Rufino?
Yes.
All right, Resolution 17, whereas Michelle Barbaro, Deputy Highway Superintendent, has requested permission to replace the compressor within the HVAC unit at the town of Lancaster's Police Department, located at 525 Pavement Road, and whereas the Deputy Highway Superintendent has obtained a proposal for the removal of the existing compressor and the purchase and installation of a new one from Greater Niagara Mechanical, Inc., for a total cost of $8,655 in accordance with the Town of Lancaster's procurement policy, and whereas by letter dated June 27, 2022, the Deputy Highway Superintendent has recommended accepting proposal for replacing the Town of Lancaster Police Department's HVAC units compressor with a new one from Greater Niagara Mechanical, Inc., and whereas funding for this service is available from the town's 2022 Buildings, Equipment, Other Capital Outlay budget. Now therefore be it resolved that the town board of the town of Lancaster hereby accepts and authorizes the supervisor to sign the proposal for the replacement of the compressor within the town of Lancaster Police Department's HVAC unit located at 525 Pavement Road from Greater Niagara Mechanical, 7311 Ward Road, Tonawanda, New York, dated June 24th, 2022, for amount not to exceed $8,655, and which will be paid for with funds available in the town's 2022 Building, Equipment, Other Capital Outlay budget.
May I have a second?
Second.
On the question? On the roll?
Councilmember Burkhart?
Yes.
Councilmember Dickman?
Yes.
Councilmember Leary?
Yes.
Councilmember Mazur?
Yes.
Supervisor Rufino?
Yes. Councilmember Dickman, number 18, please.
Thank you, Mr. Supervisor and Honorable Town Board. I offer resolution number 18 for its adoption. Whereas there are several private residential properties on Sterling Place, Hanover Street, and Carlisle Street, the Town of Lancaster, that are not in compliance with the provisions of the Code of the Town of Lancaster as relate to stormwater management and property maintenance. And whereas there are at least 2 homeowners associations similarly not in compliance as above described, and whereas the non-compliant parties have been given notice of their status and corrective action and has been demanded by the Senior Code Enforcement Officer of the Town of Lancaster Building Department. And whereas the non-compliant parties have been notified that continued non-compliance will result in the town initiating corrective action and property maintenance at the expense of the non-compliant party, and whereas the non-compliant parties remain out of compliance. Now therefore be it resolved as follows. The Town Board of the Town of Lancaster directs the Town Attorney and the Lancaster Code Enforcement Officer to take corrective action by any and all means authorized under the law.
May I have a second?
Second.
On the question, on the roll.
Councilmember Burkhart?
Yes.
Councilmember Dickman?
Yes.
Councilmember Leary?
Yes.
Councilmember Mazur?
Yes.
Supervisor Rufino?
Yes. Councilmember Burkhardt, would you close out with numbers 19 through 21, please?
Thank you, Mr. Supervisor and Honorable Town Board. I'm offering resolutions 19, 20, and 21 for adoption. 19, whereas CSEA Local 815-6763-01 and the Town of Lancaster are parties to the collective bargaining agreement. And whereas there is contractual language limiting overtime hours that may be both worked and paid annually. And whereas the Lancaster Police Department is in the process of hiring and then training a candidate for the position of clerk typist. And whereas until such time as the above described position can be filled, Police Chief William Karn has requested that 2 current employees be allowed to perform certain functions necessary to the public safety. And whereas the Lancaster Police Chief William Karn has requested that the contractual overtime limitations be temporarily suspended for clerk typist Amy Sharkey and clerk stenographer Karen Pluick. And whereas the parties to the contract agree that it is in their best interest to temporarily suspend and contractual limitations on overtime. And whereas the parties agree that the most efficient method to accomplish their mutual goals is execution of a memorandum of agreement. Now therefore be it resolved as follows. The town hereby authorizes execution of a memorandum of agreement with the following provisions. It is hereby agreed by and between the parties as follows. Number 1, the town will allow the 2 positions, 1 clerk typist position and 1 clerk stenographer position at the police department to be paid for all hours of overtime work, not limiting these hours to 40. And number 2, this suspension of the overtime limit shall expire on September 30th, 2022, unless extended by subsequent agreement. And 3, this agreement is made as an accommodation to the town, which does not, and cannot be replied upon at any future date for any reason as a past precedent. And 4, all other terms of the collective bargaining agreement not addressed herein shall remain unchanged and are in full force in effect. And be it further resolved that the overtime limitation for the individuals in these positions shall be suspended retroactively as of May 16th, 2022.
May I have a second?
Second.
On the question, on the roll.
Councilmember Burkhart?
Yes.
Councilmember Dickman?
Yes.
Councilmember Leary?
Yes.
Councilmember Mazur?
Yes.
Supervisor Rufino?
Yes.
All right, Resolution 20, whereas the town board has previously duly advertised for bids for 1 new and unused remote-controlled tracked mower for use by the Highway Department, and whereas 1 bid was received, opened, and reviewed on June 23rd, 2022, and whereas by letter dated June 24th, 2022, Highway Superintendent John Pilato has recommended awarding the bid for 1 new and unused remote-controlled tractor mower to J&J Equipment, 8913 Terex Drive, Bruton, New York, being the sole responsible bidder in the amount of $59,995. Now therefore be it resolved that the Town Board of the Town of Lancaster, upon the recommendation of John Pilato, Highway Superintendent, hereby awards the bid for 1 new and unused remote-controlled track mower to J&J Equipment, being the sole responsible bidder in the amount of $59,995 for the use by the Highway Department as it conforms to the specification on file in the office of the town clerk for an amount not to exceed $59,995, which will be paid for with funds available in the town's 2022 highway equipment passenger vehicles budget.
May I have a second?
Second.
On the question, on the roll.
Councilmember Burkhart?
Yes.
Councilmember Dickman?
Yes.
Councilmember Leary?
Yes.
Councilmember Mazur?
Yes.
Supervisor Rufino?
Yes.
Resolution 21, whereas Erie County has submitted a proposed 3-year agreement whereby they will reimburse the town of Lancaster for maintaining snow and ice removal on county highways within its jurisdiction, and whereas the town attorney and the town highway superintendent have reviewed the terms and conditions of the proposed agreement and recommend approval of same, and whereas the town board of the town of Lancaster has given due consideration to this request and deems it in the interest of the public safety to enter into a snow removal and ice control agreement with the county of Erie, New York. Now therefore be it resolved that the supervisor of the town of Lancaster be and is hereby authorized and directed to execute a 3-year snow removal and ice control agreement commencing September 1st, 2022, and terminating August 31st, 2025, between the town of Lancaster and the county of Erie, whereby the county will reimburse the town for removing snow and controlling ice from county highways located within the town's jurisdiction in accordance with the terms and conditions contained therein.
May I have a second
Second.
on the question? On the roll.
Councilmember Burkhart?
Yes.
Councilmember Dickman?
Yes.
Councilmember Leary?
Yes.
Councilmember Mazur?
Yes.
Supervisor Rufino?
Yes. We're going to move on to our communications. Number 427 is resolution tonight. 428 received and filed.
You can go slow, I didn't get them.
Oh, gotcha.
So 427 was resolution
Tonight,
tonight?
428 received and filed. 429 for resolution. 430, planning committee. 431 received and filed. 432 through 436 is planning committee. .437 for resolution. 438 and 439 received and filed. 440 and 441 are for resolution. .442 and 443 resolution tonight. .444 received and filed. 445 resolution tonight. 446 received and filed. 447 for resolution. 448 through 450 resolution tonight. 451 and 452 received and filed. 453 resolution tonight. And 454 received and filed. At this point, we'll ask anybody if they'd like to speak on any particular subject. I'll ask for a second time and a third time. Okay, I'll ask for a motion to close the meeting.
Motion to close?
May I have a second?
Second?
On the roll, please.
Councilmember Burkhart?
Yes.
Councilmember Dickman?
Yes.
Councilmember Leary?
Yes.
Councilmember Mazur?
Yes.
Supervisor Rufino?
Yes.
Carried.
Meeting adjourned.
Question I forgot about earlier. Are we doing some sort of drainage work implement right now?
Stony Road.
Not that I'm
Yeah.
aware of.
No.
Highway's not out there.
You should, we want to just tell you folks.
Me too.
Two.